I guess we are live. Let's see in the chat. Yeah, I think people can see us now, so we are live. Hi, everyone. Uh, Thank you, everyone, for joining the session. My name is Thoden, and I'm the head of partnerships at Talon One. And with us today, we have Hannah Waldenmeyer. And we had a last minute change. Unfortunately, Isabella is not able to join us. But we do have Christine, who was on the chat previously, who spontaneously was going to jump in. So yeah, I'll hand it over to you, Hannah, and just let you introduce yourself.
Perfect.
And then I think Christine is also joining the session.
Great. Thank you so much, Sharon. So nice that you guys are having me. I'm very excited for this session, talking a little bit about personal branding and the positioning for partnerships. Like you already said, my name is Hannah. I'm responsible for partnerships at Paloa. Joined the company in June, and what we're currently doing is obviously building the strategy, a partner program, working already with a bunch of partners. And I'm very excited to share some of my experience with this amazing with this amazing community here. I've been already following a couple of sessions and following the chat. So a lot of things going on. So very much looking forward to this session as well. And here we have Christine with perfect timing.
Yay! Back on stage. So for everybody who just joined, I'm Christine, leading partnerships in EMEA at Contentful. Have worked in partnerships since 2009, and I did the session just before, and I'm now super spontaneously joining Thoren and Hannah, and just excited to have a conversation with you.
Yeah, we're super excited that you were able to join on such short notice. So today we wanted to talk a little bit about some advice and tips for creating a brand in partnerships, and specifically how that can be helpful when developing partnerships in Europe and also just building a network. But before we go into, let's say, the practical advice and tips, I wanted to hear from you, like, what branding can be such an abstract concept, and it's also sometimes difficult to measure, like, what's the value of a brand, even for like a company. So I guess I'll just throw it out to you, maybe to Hannah. What does like branding mean to you, and what does even a professional brand mean?
Yeah, I think it's actually a really good question. And honestly speaking, I never really thought about it, what a professional brand actually is. But I guess you can make very close connections with, like you already mentioned, right? Like a brand that we all know and that has a specific value and that people associate specific values with and people associate specific, associations with. So I guess that holds true to people as well. So when you build a brand or when you build a network around yourself, it's always about, what comes up in people's minds when they think about you, with what kind of profession, skills, whatsoever they associate you with. And I guess there's a lot of things where you can shape this as well, right? That you can influence on how your brand, how your personal as well as professional brand is supposed to look like. And I guess maybe just to add to that, one of the first things on how to measure it or where we could look at it is obviously a platform like LinkedIn, where I think it gives people a platform to build a brand or at least to position themselves. So this is just a couple of things that come into my mind at first when I think about personal branding. I don't know what you think, Christine.
Yeah, so I agree with what you said. So I also think it's a brand is something you think of when you think of a certain person or even a company, right? But we're talking about personal brand today, and I think a brand is created through relationships, right? So the more visible you are in your network, the bigger your community. And you just mentioned LinkedIn, right? Maybe the bigger the followership in your community that interacts with you is, the more known you are. So branding is all about creating awareness, making the community, make yourself known in the community. So yeah, and then of course you're associated with a company potentially, right? So how do you represent the brand of the company? Are you maybe the face of the company in a certain market, or we're talking about EMEA, all over EMEA. So so based on relationships, the community you have, and what people associate with you and how known you are, right? That is what I would say is the brand.
And that will kind of lead me to, let's say, another question. Since it was brought up, like you can officially representing a company, or you might be the face of a company, especially in such public-facing roles like partnerships. But then also your LinkedIn account is your LinkedIn account. Like when building a brand or thinking about building a brand, how closely should your personal and company brand be, let's say, intertwined? Like, what are your thoughts?
I think there's no one fits all answer, I guess. In the optimal case, the company that you work for is a company that you stand in for, that you can, like identify yourself with, which obviously therefore gives some point like a blurred line, right? Because that's why we choose a specific company to work for. In the best case is, something that you also personally stand for and that you support and that you believe in. And obviously that will make it a lot easier to mix and combine the two things. One statement that I really like is what I learned also is that companies, they rent your relationships. They rent your, the people that you have trust with and stuff, but you own them and you need to build them. So I think that you cannot necessarily separate the both of them, but you are built, like you yourself as a person are building relationship, and the better you build those relationships, the better you can use them for professional purpose or for the company you work with. But in the end, it's you who creates those relationships and maintains them. So therefore, there's always some kind of interconnection between the two of them. And to the extent that to what extent you mix them or not, I think is also to a certain extent a little bit subjective. Some people may want to mix it more, some others would want to keep it a little bit more separate. So I guess there is no right, no wrong, and a little bit of a contingency there.
I would absolutely agree. I think also, in this ecosystem where you get to know a lot of different people, and often you see people changing jobs, but staying within the ecosystem, having those relationships is such an asset, especially when you're either starting a new role or looking to, enter a new market. As we just heard from the previous session, how important it is actually to be connected to the network that is already existing there and can sometimes be hard to break into, especially when enter a market where, business is done in the local language. And maybe like Christine, you can touch about like, what is the importance of like having a strong brand in the work environment? Like, what do you think it helps with?
I would say it helps you with the impact you can make in your community, right? In your network. If you are somebody that your network already trusts, right, then it's easier for other people in that same network to, give you the benefit of the doubt and trust you too. Of course, trust always needs to be earned, right? But if your friend trusts somebody, then you would trust that person as well. So I think it's important to have a strong brand for that. Also, just like if you want to get your message out, right? If you have a strong brand, you might be invited more as a speaker to events like we are all today. And it's an opportunity for you to get your message out, either for the company you're working at, or in our case today, just about the profession or the role, right, that we have. So yeah, in general, I would say strong brand equals impact.
Okay. No, I love that. I think I'm also just looking at the chat. I think it's so true. Like if you manage to build a strong brand and you're known across the industry, it's something that will impact your whole career and also open up a lot of opportunities. Though you also mentioned like building a community around you. I know, Hannah, that is something that like you have experience with, and also that you're currently building out a partner community in Germany. And since this event is focused on partnerships in Europe and like how to grow the partner community, in our market, could you share us a bit about, like, tell us a bit about your experience? What are maybe the learnings and also the impact that you have seen having like building a strong community? Has had?
Yeah, super happy to do so because it's super dear to my heart as well. And it's funny how it all started, because I think all of us were at one point at the beginning of our career, at least at the beginning of our partnership career. And I think we can all say that, especially in EMEA, the whole topic around partnership is quite new and it's just evolving, right? We're just at the beginning. So it's amazing that we're already here and we're sharing our experiences, right? But so back in the days when I started building a partnership department, I had no clue. So I said, like, I want to learn from people that already have some experience from whom I can learn from. So what I did is I just invited a couple of partner professionals to our office back in the days, and I kind of made them speak and share their learnings and best practices, and that's from whom I learned, right? And I saw so much value in it that I said at some point I want to give it back to the community. I want to give it back to other people that are just starting out. And I think just adding to the question before as well, so what's the impact of a brand? I think it's also, first of all, learning yourself, because then people may be also more open to share stuff with you, but also the other way around, right? Being able to share your best practices, coach people, develop people, reaching, new heights. And I think this is something that is super, super valuable. And that's what I love about partnerships in general, because it's always about a win-win situation, right? Partnerships is all about a mutual benefit. And I think building those meetups and those communities where everyone with the same mindset, right? Like willing to get the most out of both worlds and all worlds. And it just sort of fits. So people share their experiences, their best practices. And I think that's amazing, and the beauty around it. So I started this back in the days in Munich. Now I'm working headquartered in Berlin. So we initiated it again in Berlin. We're organizing those meetups, and they've been received very positively. We're having great exchange, great learnings, and super happy to continue. And obviously, I would everyone to encourage to join any kind of meetups you can find close to you. And I saw that already in the thread, that in other countries, people were like pushing and asking for it, because there's so much value and so much benefit you can take out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Hannah, we've known each other for a few weeks now, but I think definitely the fact that you're organizing these meetups, like the perception that I have of you is someone who is a giver, is bringing people together, is there to share knowledge and like move, let's say, partnerships as a profession forward. And I think that also kind of like the activities that you do also align very closely with your beliefs and the values, and the fact that you said like you learned so much, now you want to give it back. And I feel like, knowing you personally, that's like the presence or the impact that I see, and I associate that with my impression of you. I don't know if that is intentional when you were creating that brand, but that is definitely how I see you in the partnership space, and also the community here in Berlin. So maybe to touch on that, like a bit more practical, like what are some of the tips, or how would you advise someone to get started if they wanted to establish themselves in partnerships or start creating that brand? And maybe if you could give some advice on like what would be the channels that someone could use to get started. Maybe Christine, you want to kick us off?
Yeah. So I'm thinking about two channels, the online and the offline channel. So first of all, I mean, the more visible you are with posts where you share knowledge, to Hannah's point, right? Give something to the community on LinkedIn. The more you're seen, right? Again, you create awareness about yourself, about who you are, what you share, right? What the knowledge is you bring to the market. You get the community talking. So definitely, being more active on LinkedIn is one suggestion or recommendation I would make. And then being active, luckily we can meet in person again now. This has been tough for 2 years, but being active in your community. And Hannah, I will take you up on meeting in Berlin. This is amazing. And so on you too. We're all in Berlin. So meet the people, right? Have conversations. Again, share. Take speaker engagements. Again, to get your message out, to build your brand, show the world who you are and what you stand for, what your values are, and and don't be shy to connect. Be proactive also. Like when there's a community meetup, my goal is always I go there. Yes, I want to catch up with the people I know, but then I also want to meet kind of as many new people I can, right, as time allows for that evening or lunch or whatever it is. So yeah, offline, online.
And maybe just to add to this, I think what's super important is that you stay authentic, because I can only speak from my own experience that I'm more like of an face-to-face person. Like, I'm very bad in doing LinkedIn posts. Like, I just don't like it, and it causes me I need a lot of time for it. I need to think about it, and it's not for everyone. Like, not everyone likes to post stuff. So you don't necessarily just think about yourself on where you feel more comfortable, and if it's connecting over coffee or over lunch, over breakfast, depending, or even a wine, a glass of wine in the evening, depending on what kind of person you are. I think this will give you like the best spirit of actually exchanging those ideas. And I totally agree with you, Kristen, that in the best case scenario, it's both worlds, right? Because we cannot go with one or the other nowadays. But still, if you feel like I'm more of the person who writes stuff and who posts stuff, and you're less of the person that interacts with people face to face, that's fine. Then you go more in that direction. And if you're the other person, then you focus more on that. And I think if you find your own balance and your rhythm in both of it, and your style of connecting, then it will also work, because it's going to be authentic, and then it's easy also.
Yeah. And speaking about that, like, let's say in the difference in personalities, and some people are very good and have, like, let's say an online presence or online persona. Do you see a difference between partner professionals in the US when it comes to putting themselves out there versus like people in Europe? Or specifically, we talked about Germany or the DACH market, and France, and also the Nordics. Like, what are you seeing in your own networks?
I'm very spontaneous with my thoughts, right? Because it's the first time I hear these questions. But spontaneously, I would say that you maybe start building your brand in the market you either start in or you have your current role. And of course, this depends on your role too, right? So if you're a partner manager, for example, in Germany, then you start building your brand in Germany, and you build your community, you connect with all your partners in this market. If you have a role where you're responsible for EMEA, then you do this, in all the, for you, important markets in EMEA. And I think in the US, it's one US market, right? And I have a lot of conversations with my husband, who is American, who tells me there are also differences, right? You have different cultures in the US market, but still, from a partnership point of view, if you work with, I don't know, an Accenture in North America, then you work with them across the whole country, right? And not just in one specific market with one specific language. So maybe, and this is an assumption, it's easier to build your brand in the US because you have a broad reach than in Europe, where, first of all, you need to be known in these other markets. You need to travel. You maybe need to speak other languages to get into local communities. So maybe it's easier in the US than Europe, but it's an assumption. So Hannah, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that it's just a lot more evolved in the US, I feel like, because, like posting about yourself and posting more personal stuff as well, and putting yourself out there, exposing yourself in general is, I think, also something that has been done way more in the US already than at least I can speak for Germany, and also what I see from other European countries. So I think that's something where also we're a little bit behind, for good or for bad, whatever you want to interpret in there. But what I can see, at least in the last, let's say, 1 to 2 years in my professional network, is that people start to post more also on a personal note. And I have the feeling that this topic around building a personal brand is evolving as well. And people are trying to build their brand on LinkedIn. And before that, at least I have the feeling it wasn't that much. So it kind of got more and more, and I think it's evolving. So I think it will become more and more important as well. But at the same time, coming back to what I said earlier, it needs to be authentic, right? It doesn't have to be for everyone. But it definitely helps. That's for sure.
I would agree that for some people it becomes it's very easy even to disclose like things from their private life, and they can very nicely tie that into also their professional life and their brand, and they do have a very active, let's say, social presence. I do know there is also communities where you're not as, let's say, exposed to the whole world like you would like on LinkedIn, but there are let's say private Slack communities where you are able to build your presence, or like you mentioned, more in-person events, or also at work. I'd also be curious, like we do have, you say, speakers on this panel that are quite experienced. You're already like VP, head of, and have had the opportunity to speak at many different events or conferences. What would be your advice for someone who is just starting out and is, let's say, looking to, let's say, build a brand or define that brand, and maybe doesn't have the experience or doesn't have the opportunity to have, spoken at a lot of conferences or created a lot of content? Like, how do you get started?
I think it can be very easy. It's like just looking to your left and your right and looking at people that you may know from previous jobs, friends, colleagues. You reach out to them. Again, coming back to the point, you do whatever you like. Go for a coffee, go for a drink, meet online, whatever you prefer. Connect, chat, and then it's just like the breadcrumb or the snowball tactic, right? So then from there you meet another person, then you go to a meet up with like-minded people, meet up with people that support you with it, and then it depends on, I think you always should reflect on what's my goal, like what should my brand actually look like do I want to be the next speaker on a big stage? If that's your goal, then target it and then speak to the right people that potentially have been on a large stage themselves. If your goal is just to become an expert in your field and just do a good job and achieve your targets, your approach will be slightly different potentially, right? So I think it's always important to to think before you start, maybe even to think about what's your actual goal, like what does your personal brand look like? What do you want to achieve? What's your target? And then based on that, you connect with the right people. And you can start, easily with the ones being more closer next to you, and then obviously extend based on that.
I would second that, and then I would add that that you can start small, right? You can start in your own company. You can start speaking up at a team meeting. You can start doing a presentation for your manager or their manager. You can speak at a company event, right? So you're in a kind of trusted circle, right? It's all your colleagues. They don't judge you, and you can gain that experience. And then over time, get out, right? And like you say, meet with these communities, maybe then speak, maybe also start at a smaller event where like a partner roundtable where you only have 10, 15 people in the room, right? And over time you grow, and then you talk to audiences with hundreds or thousands of people, right? Depends. And degree, depends on what you want. Is it for your own career growth? Is it to, again, impact your network in a certain way? Is it to enter a new market? So different steps, but again, start small would be my first advice.
I would absolutely agree. I think one of the business coach that I worked with, the advice that she gave me when starting to think about a brand in a professional environment was always like, tie it back to your values. What do you want to be known for? And then how do you tie that into the activities that you're already doing? So like starting small, and not to sound too morbid, but like think about like if you were writing a eulogy, like what would you want people to write about you? What do you want to be known for? And I think that like really it brings a focus into, and it connects to your core values. Like I want to be known as someone who is contributing back to the community, or I want to be known as an expert in my field, or I want to be known, I don't know, as someone who was like, I don't know, innovative or consistent, or I want to be liked. And then how do you tie that into your interactions with people at work or also in your wider community?
I love that.
And doing that, I think it's still important, like Hannah said, to be authentic, right? Don't just think I want to be this imaginary person, and then it's hard work, because if it's not you, then it's all artificial and it takes a lot of energy from you, right? So I would also say, find your passion, follow your passion, and be authentic, right? And then do all the things we just discussed.
Exactly. I think that was also in the comments from the chat about, being authentic. I think tying it to your own values is super important. I think, I don't know, are there any questions from the audience? I see the chat is quite active. I see a lot of praise, which is great. So it means hopefully we're resonating with the audience and what you expected from the session. Yeah, great comment from Isaac here. My own experience is I've often learned more when I've tried to connect with others and sharing knowledge, because you can get a lot of feedback. So he has a comment here about learning out loud. And I think that's a great idea, because often I think there's a saying, if you want to know if you really know something, teach it to someone else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And also ask questions, right? So if you're not the expert on something, ask questions. That makes the other person feel valued. They like to talk about what they know best, right? And then this is more about learning, having an exchange, building the community, but eventually, right, it can turn into building a brand as well.
Yeah.
All right.
I guess we're going to all meet at some partner meetups then.
Yes, maybe we have to do that.
Yeah, maybe we do a shameless plug-in for the partner meetup that Hannah is organizing in Berlin. I know there are a lot of other meetups that have been posted in the channel. So yeah, please share, please join. Let's keep up the momentum. Let's build a partner community and let's advance all of our learning here in Europe. And with that, thank you all and have a wonderful weekend.
Yeah, happy Friday, everyone. Grab a glass.
Thanks very much.
Connect and network.
Yes, see you soon. Bye-bye.